Hey there, this is Sid and today we shall solve a SQL problem from StrataScratch. The title of the problem is Pizza Partners. It's listed as a medium difficulty problem and the ID of the problem is 2016. As always, we shall start by looking at the input tables. We have three input tables here. The first one is Postmates orders, the second one is Postmates markets, and the third one is Postmates partners. As always, I have exported these tables to Excel so it's easier to view. So these are the three input tables. This is the orders table, and this are the markets and partners tables respectively. The most important table is the orders table. Most of the action will happen on this table. So let's try to understand this table. It is a listing of all the orders that were placed for food delivery. The first column, ID, is the ID of the transaction or the order. It uniquely identifies each order. The second column is the customer ID, the ID of the person who placed the order. Then you have the courier ID and the seller ID, the person who shipped and the seller who sold the order. Then you have a timestamp, then an amount, the total bill for that order, and lastly you have a city ID. These two columns were not part of the original table. I have added these two columns later. We shall return to these columns. So how is this table related to the other two tables? As you can see, the seller ID column of the orders table corresponds to the ID column of the partners table. So for example, if you would like to know what was the name of the seller whose ID was 79, you can come to this table and look that up. The name of the seller is Papa Murphy's. That's exactly what I have done in the partner's name column. I have used the seller ID, performed a lookup on this table and output the value here. So 79 corresponds to Papa Murphy's, 75 corresponds to Domino's Pizza, and so on. Similarly, there's a city ID column here and a markets table here. You can use the city ID column to get the detail about the name of the city. So for example, 47 corresponds to Denver, 44 corresponds to Seattle, 43 corresponds to Boston, and so on. I have used this city ID to perform a lookup on this table to fill this last column, the partner location column. So this was our original orders table, and on top of that I have performed a lookup using the seller ID column and the city ID column to fetch the partner name and the partner location. Once we have done that, we really do not have any use for these two tables anymore. All the information that we want are now in this single table here, right? So now let's go back to the problem and try to understand it. The problem says that which partners have pizza in their name and are located in Boston. So that's easy. We can apply a filter here in the partner's name and find out which partners have the word pizza in their name. So Domino's Pizza does and Pizza Hut does. So that drastically filters out many columns from the table and we are left with a smaller table. The second condition is it should be located in Boston. So now I come here and apply a filter for Boston and the table shrinks further and we are left with this small table. And then the question is, what is the average order amount? Output the partner name and the average order amount. So if the partner name is Pizza Hut, the average order amount will be the amount for this single row because you have only one row for Pizza Hut. If you had multiple rows, you could actually calculate a meaningful average. But if you have only one row, the average is the same as the number itself. Similarly, for Domino's Pizza, you have only one row. So the average amount would be the value of the amount itself. So I hope I was able to explain what the problem is asking us to do and also show you how to solve the problem in Excel. So this intermediate table here that I had created was just to help us filter out the partner name. So we just eyeballed from the drop down and checked the two partners who had the word pizza in their name. We could have done it in a slightly more roundabout fashion. We could have created an intermediate partners table by keeping only the rows for the partners that have the word pizza in their name. And once we knew the IDs, instead of having to eyeball on the partner's name column, we could have gone to the seller ID column and selected 75 and 77 there. So now I hope that the problem statement and the solution to the problem as we have done in Excel is clear to us. Let's now try to translate this solution to SQL. should be fairly straightforward. As always, I have written the query in Notepad++ because it's much easier to see there. As you can see, I have three tables: Postmate orders, Postmate markets, and Postmate partners, and I'm performing some inner joins between them. So for simplicity, from now on, I shall keep referring to Postmate orders as just orders, Postmate markets as just markets, and Postmate partners as just partners. For the moment, let's not worry about the group by and the average that I have done here. In fact, let's forget about the select clause altogether. Let's first try to understand what the joins are doing. So what's the first join doing? We are performing an inner join between orders and markets, but we are not taking the entire markets table. We are only interested in the orders that were fulfilled in Boston. So we have applied a filter on the markets table to keep only those rows for which the name of the city is Boston. So that subset of the markets table we call by the alias markets. So now we perform an inner join between orders and the markets, which is a smaller table than the original markets table, and the joining key is city ID for the orders table and ID for the markets table. So what this inner join between the markets and the orders table will do is it will use this thinner markets table, which will have only one row for Boston, and it will use the entire orders table and perform an inner join where the joining key will be the city column here and the ID column here. So it basically says apply a filter of 43 on the city ID column. That reduces the orders table to a mere 5 rows from the 20 rows that we started off with. So I hope I was able to explain the output of the first inner join between the orders and the markets table. Now with this output, this shorter table with only 5 rows, we perform one more inner join with the partners table. But again, not with the full partners table, but with a subset or a filtered version of the partners table. That filtered version of the partners table is that where the name column has pizza as part of the name. So going back to our Excel, this partners table is not used in its entirety to perform the second inner join, but a shorter version of the partners table is used where the name has the word pizza in it. So when you perform an inner join between this shorter version of the partners table and the output of the previous inner join using the seller ID column of the orders table and the ID column of the partners table as the joining key, what you are essentially asking SQL to do is you are asking SQL to perform one more filter on the seller ID column where you want to keep only 75 and 77. So now you are down to these few rows, no more than that. So I hope that explains the two inner joins. The first inner join between the orders table and a shorter version of the markets table where the name is Boston, and taking that output and performing one more inner join with a subset version of the partners table where the name column of the partners table has the string pizza in it. And once you perform these two inner joins, you are down to this table. Now we have to perform some selections. So I say, okay, from the partners table, which is the last table, you keep the name. So I'm going to keep the name, partner name from the partners table. And from the orders table, I would like to keep the amount, but not as is. I would rather like to take an average. So for all the rows that have Pizza Hut in the partner name column, which incidentally in this case is only one, I would like to take an average of the amount column. And similarly for all the rows that have Domino's Pizza in the partner name column, I would like to take an average of the amount, which in this case will be 105.07 because there's only one row to average over. And of course, the last line of the SQL statement is a group by statement, because if you are performing some aggregation on the amount, you have to specify the column using which you would like to group all the rows together and then perform an aggregation on one of the columns. So now that we understand the query, let's quickly run it in the SQL editor of StrataScratch. So if we run this query, we do see that the output that we get name Domino's Pizza average 105.07 and name Pizza Hut average 158.68 agrees with the output provided by StrataScratch. Domino's Pizza 105.07 and Pizza Hut 158.68. I hope I was able to explain the solution to this problem. I'll keep coming back with solutions to more SQL problems from StrataScratch, so please stay tuned.